Every few months, a new game gets picked as the latest example of everything wrong with modern gaming. Bloated budgets, rising prices, and somehow
less quality.
sometimes those criticisms hit the mark. Other times, they feel more like people just looking for something to be mad about. Right now, that game is Avowed. But the weird part is, a lot of the loudest complaints are coming from people who haven't even played the game. Meanwhile, the actual critics who did play it acknowledge its flaws, but still call it a solid 8 out of 10 experience, which is literally its Metacritic score. As someone who actually has played Avowed, who sees the good, the bad, and the no, this isn't Skyrim, I'm just sitting here wondering, why does everyone hate Avowed? There's a lot to love about Avowed. Even with all the criticism, most people still admit it's a fun game, and that's what matters most. The combat, super satisfying. I didn't even bother trying the third person mode because everything in first person just felt right. From the previews, I knew I wanted to run a spellcaster hybrid build, and at first I thought I'd rock a pistol. That was cool for a bit, but it felt a bit too slow for my playstyle. What I didn't expect was how fast-paced the combat actually is. I found myself weaving through the battlefield, dodging, sprinting, blasting enemies with magic from a distance, then closing in to finish them off one by one with this really cool flaming sword I got off a priest in the dungeon while exploring. More on that later. And it's not easy either. I died plenty of times just from mismanaging my essence, which need to cast spells, my health, and my spacing around the combat zone. But the freedom to swap loadouts on the fly and tweak my build to fit my playstyle, wow. The skill tree isn't about locking you into a specific weapon type. It's about shaping how you want to play. I went heavy on speed, survivability, and raw damage because that's what made the game feel better for me. Every time I leveled up, I just adjusted what I needed, and that flexibility made the game that much better. Exploration is another huge highlight. The world is gorgeous, and I can't tell you how many times I completely ignored my active quests just because I saw something cool in the distance. One time, I spotted an area that looked like it had some solid loot. To get there, I had to slip behind a waterfall. Classic. But instead of just finding a chest, I stumbled upon an enemy encampment, and my choices in that moment actually shaped how things played out in the area later on. Funny enough, it feels like your actions have more of a consequences than your dialogue choices, which reinforces the fact that this isn't your typical Western RPG. It's more of an action-adventure game with heavy RPG elements, and honestly, I love that. It's also got some great quality of life features. Being able to send extra equipment straight to your stash from the inventory screen, huge. No more stopping every few minutes to deal with encumbrance. Some people might argue, well, why have encumbrance at all then? And to that I say, some of y'all just love to be mad. Avowed is designed to keep you playing, not bog you down with busy work. I was so into this game that I did damn near every side quest in every area. Not because I felt like I had to, but because I wanted to. More exploration, more combat, more discovery. I wanted everything Obsidian was willing to give me. Is this game perfect? No, but it's really good.
Masoni, this isn't just an attempted murder. It's a conspiracy. One of my rangers is a traitor.
There are some things that warrant valid criticism, like the fact they decided that map markers weren't necessary in 2025, in a game I just praised for its exploration. I mean, really? This much exploration and there's no way to get back to that one chest I didn't have enough lockpicks for? Okay, Obsidian. Also, the narrative. I don't think it's bad per se, there's just a lot of it. Like, a lot of it. The game starts up and you're immediately hit with a monologue that lasts long enough for you to get lost in what's actually going on. The player choice and dialogue is cool in theory, but since my answers don't drastically shift the in-game universe in every single conversation, why do I need 3 different responses just to ask some random townsperson about their day? Sometimes I'm just clicking on NPCs to see if they say something funny or cool, which they sometimes do. I'm not necessarily trying to engage in a deep philosophical debate, and I know some people feel guilty about this, but I spacebarred through a lot of that dialogue. Obsidian, come here. Your narrative doesn't have to be the defining pillar of the game when everything else is already so freaking good. Don't abandon what makes you you, but next time maybe think about what feels good versus what feels familiar. So performance. I thought the open zone structure mixed with the first person perspective would be a frame rate savior, but no, I could rarely hit 60 FPS. Most of the time I was chilling in the high 40s, low 50s at 1080p, but I gave up more than I felt was worth it to get there. Eventually, I settled on 1440p with the balanced DLSS option, and honestly, it's fine. I am an FPS snob, but I'd rather have a stable and pretty 40 than a stuttery almost 60 that just teases me. If I had better hardware, maybe this wouldn't be an issue, but even some reviewers with solid rigs reported problems. Though to be fair, some of those same reviewers also said things about this game that I and others have either debunked or vehemently disagree with. Except for the NPCs standing around town all creepy like. That part's true. Do I care? Not even a little bit. In fact, I wouldn't have noticed if people hadn't pointed out to me. But yeah, they're basically background decorations with faces. Ugly faces. You might care about that, and that's valid, but do you really? You know what? Keep the NPCs static. cool, but in exchange, can we lower that $70 price tag? Because once you start charging that kind of money, expectations are sky high, and I don't think Avowed reaches those expectations. $70 is a premium price tag reserved for games like Final Fantasy and Tears of the Kingdom, massive polished experiences that justify the cost. Meanwhile, Lost Soul Aside looks absolutely incredible with AAA level visuals and fast-paced action, yet it's sticking to the standard $60. Now, to be fair, I played Avowed through my Game Pass subscription, so I didn't personally feel the sting of that price. But that's not really the point. The decision to price this at $70 feels out of touch with what players expect. It sets the wrong expectations and makes people more likely to wait for a sale rather than pick it up at launch, while also drawing unfair comparisons and criticisms. Avowed is a really good game where you don't have a in your ear telling you that it isn't. It's some of the most fun I've had gaming this gen, and that's coming off a replay of Final Fantasy VII Rebirth on PC. The comparisons I kept hearing were between Avowed and Skyrim, with people saying that the first-person view alone made it a direct competitor. But honestly, no. Games should be judged as standalone experiences, unless we're talking sequels or remakes where the entire point is to compare. The devs themselves straight up said, hey, this isn't Skyrim, and people still compared it to Skyrim. Okay, so I haven't played Skyrim, but if Avowed is supposedly a budget version of that and I still had more fun than most people allege they did, then maybe I need to. And maybe Skyrim is that good, but here's the thing. If Skyrim never existed, or if people played Avowed in the built-in third-person mode, then maybe those same critics will be way less nitpicky. We have this bad habit in gaming where every RPG that's even remotely open world gets held against Skyrim like it's the sacred text of game design. Not every game needs to be a 100-hour Metacritic 90+ second coming of Jesus RPG experience. Sometimes get a slightly janky 7 or 8 out of 10, 20 to 30 hour adventure that fits in between the Baldur's Gates and the Elden Rings of the world. And that's okay. Gaming is art, and like any art, it's going to be judged, just like your favorite movie, favorite album, or even this video. You can't put something out subjective like a video game and expect it to be immune to criticism. But what we can do is look at the bigger picture, the overall reviews, the reception, and the experience of actual players, and determine what works. And Avowed works. If you disagree, cry more. Go make a 45-minute video essay about it. I don't know.